Hello everyone. Today we are going to continue with the third topic, the age of revolutions 1830 to 1884, and this is from class 10, the first lesson. The name of the lesson was Rise of Nationalism in Europe. This is the sixth video. Already we have done 5 videos and we have already given them in the playlist. If you have not seen them, or if you want to have a review of the last topics, you can just go and see the videos that are given in the playlist. So now let us continue with the third topic of the lesson, the age of revolutions from the year 1830 to 1880, 1848. So what happened during this time period? So we are going to understand that how conservatism, how, as you know, who are the conservatives? The conservatives are those people who wanted gradual changes. They wanted back the monarchical system but with a different outlook. So now let us see, after 1815 most of the conservatives had come into power and they had been brought back into power with the hope that they would be able to look after the needs of the people. But as the monarchical powers came into proper kingdoms, they tried to consolidate, they tried to keep the power in their own hands, and they did not give any importance to the people, whatever the needs of the subjects were. As a result, the people were not happy with the monarchical and the conservative regimes and they wanted to fight back. So as conservative regimes tried to consolidate their power in their own hands, liberalism and nationalism, these two ideas came to be increasingly associated with revolutions in many regions of Europe, such as the Italian as well as the German states and the provinces, that is the some areas of the Ottoman Empire. Ottoman Empire was the empire ruled by mainly the Muslim kings and emperors, and Ireland and Poland also. So these areas, which were these regions of Europe like Italian the states and the German states and the Ottoman Empire, Ireland, Poland, they were not happy with the monarchical form of the government. So these conservative regimes were also against liberalism and nationalism. These revolutions were led by the liberal nationalists belonging to the educated middle class elite, among whom most of them were professors, school teachers, clerks, members of the commercial middle class like businessmen. And these people were the people who wanted some kind of equality in the society. They wanted that they also should be respected and they also should be given the due importance in the society. Now, let us see what happened and how these people began to fight back against the conservative regimes. Now, let us go to the next paragraph. The first upheaval took place in France in July 1830. So the first upheaval means here the first push or the first revolution started in July 1830. As you know, after 1815, in the year 1815, we come to know that during this time period of 1815 to 1830, there was the Bourbon dynasty and they had been brought back to power. And as if you remember in the lesson the French Revolution of class 9, 1789 was the year where the Bourbon dynasty, King Louis XVI was removed from the power, and till 1815 they were under this democratic form of the government. But again from 1815 to 1830 there was the restoration of the Bourbon dynasty and the Bourbon king. So the Bourbon kings who had been restored to power during the conservative reaction after 1815 were now overthrown by the liberal revolutionaries who installed a constitutional monarchy with the help of Louis Philippe at its head. So Louis Philippe was given the charge of looking after the administration of France, and it was a constitutional monarchy. The monarchy was being controlled by a constitution. Even Duke Metternich, Austrian Chancellor, he once remarked that when France sneezes, the rest of the Europe catches cold. It means that everything starts in France. So when France sneezes, anything starts in France, the rest of the whole continent of Europe catches, or they become contagious with cold or with the revolution. So here also the July Revolution sparked an uprising in Brussels, which led to Belgium breaking away from the United Kingdom of the Netherlands. So here we come to know about the importance of France here. So in July 1830, when the revolution started, it started in France. In the earlier times, also in 1789, the main French Revolution started in France, and slowly it spread to other parts of Europe. So, this is the importance of France here as told by Duke Metternich. An event that mobilized the nationalist feelings among the educated elite across the Europe was the Greek War of Independence. Now, what was this Greek War of Independence? Now, see, 1800, in the year 1800, this year was one of the important years of the revolution. Why? Because we come to know that some of the areas of Europe were being controlled by some kings of some areas were there, which is the Ottoman Empire and all, were controlled by another king, and mostly the kings of the Muslim descent. And these had so many areas under them, and this so many Ottoman, so many empires had been started. An event that mobilized the nationalist feelings among the educated elite across the Europe was the Greek War of Independence. So the event that happened here, that mobilized or changed the nationalistic feelings among the educated, the people, those were educated, elite class, high class, they were taking part in the Greek War of Independence. Now let's go and talk about Greece. Greece had been part of the Ottoman Empire, which was a Muslim empire, since the 15th century. Before that it was free, but the growth of revolutionary nationalism in Europe sparked off a struggle. There was a fight for independence among the Greeks, which began in the year 1821. So in 1821, many Greeks said that we should not be under the Ottoman Empire, and as we were earlier free, now also we should be free. So the nationalists in Greece, in the country of Greece, got support from the other Greeks who were living in exile in other countries. So they decided to fight for independence. They said that our culture, our language, our traditions should be preserved, and that is why in the year 1821, and these people started the Greek War of Independence. After that, these people, nationalists in Greece, got support from the other Greeks living in exile. So many people who were living in exile as punishment, who were told to go away from their country, they all supported this Greek War of Independence. And also from many West Europeans also, who had sympathies for the ancient Greek culture. They all supported the Greek culture, and they wanted to be a part of saving this culture and this tradition of Greeks from the Ottoman Empire. So we can find that many poets and many artists and writers lauded, and they all praised Greece and said that Greece as the cradle of the European civilization and mobilized public opinion to support its struggle against the Muslim empire. So here they say that Greece was the cradle, it was the starting point. As a baby is born and put in a cradle first, so cradle is the symbol of a new beginning, a new what you can say life. So that is why Greece was the cradle of the European civilization. Whatever civilization grew in Europe actually came from Greece, and that is why mobilized the public opinion, the people's ideas, the opinion were all in support to fight against this Ottoman Empire, which was a Muslim empire. And this time these people decided to go against the Ottoman Empire. Now it is not by fighting, but the English poet Lord Byron organized funds and later on went to fight in the war also, but where he died of fever in 1824. So Lord Byron, who went and organized funds and collected money, and later on he contributed by going to the war also, but unfortunately he died in 1824 because of fever. And finally, after so many years of fight, the Treaty of Constantinople, so it is the old name of Istanbul, and the Treaty of Constantinople of 1832 was signed, and it recognized Greece as an independent nation finally, which was not under the Ottoman Empire. So the next point is 3.1, the romantic imagination and national feeling. Now, the development of nationalism did not come about only through wars and territorial expansion. Why? Because it was not only by the wars and territorial expansion that a country's nationalism ideas will develop, but culture also played a very important role in creating the idea of the nation. Like we see art and poetry and stories and music and all these different kinds of these creative pursuits also helped express and shape the nationalist feelings among the Europeans and among the people in the continent of Europe. Now, let us look at Romanticism. What is it actually? Romanticism is actually a cultural movement. It is a movement related with culture which sought to develop a particular form of national sentiment. And the people should be aware of that. It brings a kind of new feeling to the mind of the people. Romantic artists and poets generally criticize the glorification of reason and science. They say that science and reason and thinking with mind is not so great. It is not to be glorified. They criticized it. And they say that the people must think with their hearts. And this is, let me turn it this side. Yeah, okay, so here we can see that they did not glorify reason and science, and instead they tried to focus on intuition. That is, they thought that this will happen, that will happen, the guess of certain work, emotions, the feelings and mystical feelings. Mystical feelings here like associated with some mythology or mystic, or which is a mystery, which is we don't know what is on the other side. So their effort was to create a sense of shared collective heritage, a heritage that we got it together, and a common cultural past. Our past should be linked with each other, and then only it will be the basis of the nation. Then only we can say that our culture, our heritage and our past is together, and then we are together as a nation. So here picture is also you can see here. It is the massacre where around 20,000 Greeks were killed by the Turks on the island of Chios, and this is how they tried to destroy the Greek culture. So other romantics such as the German philosopher in Germany, Johann Gottfried Herder, 1744 to 1803, he claimed that he was a very important person in preserving the culture. He said that true German culture was to be discovered among the common people. The common people local name is Das Volk, and it was through the folk songs, the poetry, folk dances, that the true spirit of the nation, that is Volksgist, was popularized. So by looking at the folk dance culture, we can find out. So recording and collecting these forms of folk culture was very essential to the project of nation building. So if you have to build our nation, we have to collect, we have to remember the folk songs and the dances, and we must preserve them in our memory. The emphasis or the importance on the vernacular language or the local language and the collection of the local folklore, the stories, the songs, etc., lyrics, and this was not just to recover an ancient national spirit, but also to carry the modern nationalist message to the large audiences who were mostly literate. Now, most of the people did not know how to read and write. For them, these songs and these stories and these different kinds of art and poetry, these were the main way of carrying the modern nationalist feeling, the message to the larger people, larger audiences who did not know how to read and write. If you write a book, only how many people could read? Only like 10% or 5% of them. Most of them, 90% of the population were illiterate. So it was not only to just save the national spirit, but also to carry forward. This was especially in the case of Poland also, which had been partitioned at the end of the 18th century by the great powers Russia and Prussia and Austria. So as you know, after 1815, most of the conservatives came into power, and this countries like Russia, Prussia, and Austria attacked Poland and took it under their control. So each of these countries got a part of Poland. And even though Poland no longer existed as an independent territory, however, the nationalist feelings were kept alive through music and language, so Polish language. So people remembered the Polish language, and there was no existence of the territory of the geographical area of Poland. It was all under Russia and Prussia and Austria. There was no boundary, there was no border, but however, people remained the same. They spoke the Polish language. One name we come to know here, Karol Karpiński, and he, for example, celebrated the national struggle through his operas. Operas are like songs which are high pitched, and music, and turning folk dances like Polonaise and Mazurka into nationalist symbol. So when someone danced the Polonaise dance or Mazurka, it was a nationalist symbol. Also, we come to know the Grimm brothers. Here you can see in the right side, there is a box. Two brothers were there, and both of them were lawyers, Jacob and William. They traveled from place to place and collected proper German folklore. So anyways, let's go and talk about language. Language too played an important role in developing the nationalist sentiments. After Russian occupation, the Polish language was forced out of the school. People in Poland were not allowed to learn the Polish language. Schools also, they could not teach the Polish language. And forcefully, the Russian language was imposed everywhere. And everywhere you could see that only the Russian language was to be used. In 1831, what happened is that an armed rebellion in the year 1831, an armed rebellion, a group of army, or not army actually, the common people, the rebelled and went against the Russian rule took place, which was ultimately crushed as it was very, very weak from the side of Poland. So they tried to fight against the Russian what you can say dominating rule, but however they could not do so. Following this, many members of the clergy of the church of the Poland in Poland began to use the language, Polish language, as a weapon for the national resistance. They said that if we have to fight against, we are not going to take any weapon, but we are going to say our language, speak our language. So Polish language was used for the church gathering. Whenever in the on Sundays, whenever the church gatherings are held, and all religious instruction were usually imparted and given and preached in the Polish language. As a result, what happened? A large number of the priests and the fathers and bishops, those who are related with the church, were put in jail, or sometimes they were sent to Siberia by the Russian authorities, so that it was a punishment for their refusal to preach and to speak in Russian language. And thus we come to see the use of the Polish language came to be seen as a symbol of the struggle against Russian dominance. So here we come to know that without any kind of weapon, without any kind of war, the people of Poland use language as a symbol of the struggle against the Russian dominant rule or Russian dominance. So this is what we come to know about the importance of language here. Now I told about the Grimm brothers. You can read in this box and you can try to find out. And now let us go and talk about 3.2 unit, that is hunger, hardship and popular revolt. What happened? How did hunger and hardship also start the revolt? As we know, the 1830s were years of great economic hardship in Europe. And the first half of the 19th century saw an enormous increase in the population all over Europe. The population increased so much in the first half of the 19th century. And these years were great economic, there was a great economic hardship. There was no income, less income. Why? Let's see what had happened there. In most countries, there were more seekers of job, those who wanted jobs, than employment. So employment opportunities were less, jobs were less, but the people asking for job were more. Population from rural areas migrated or moved to the cities to live in the overcrowded slums. They moved from the cities, moved from the village areas, rural areas, countryside to the cities, and they did not get any proper place to sleep and stay. They overcrowded in the slum areas on the sides of the roads and all. Small producers in towns were often faced with stiff competition, proper competition from the imports of the cheap machine made goods from England, as well as there was a competition from the machine made goods which was quite cheap. People did not buy the producer small things, while industrialization was far more advanced on the continent. So this was especially so in the textile production. Why? Because in England the textile production was carried out earlier, and here it was because mainly it was done in homes and small workshops and was partly mechanized. So here the production was not much also, and the cost of making the clothes were also little more. So in those regions of Europe where the aristocracy, the nobleman, still enjoyed power, these peasants struggled under the burden of the feudal dues and obligations. They could not do any farming by themselves. They had to pay tax. They had to be under the burden of these aristocrats. The rise of the food prices, a year of bad harvest, again led to widespread pauperism. Pauperism means here the poverty. The people turned into poor conditions in town also and in the countryside also. So here we come to know about how the people were living during the time. The people had to struggle, and the peasants also had to struggle because they had to pay a lot of feudal dues and lot of taxes, and they had a lot of obligations. They were not independent, and moreover the price of the food increased, it rise, it had become so high. And moreover, the year of the bad harvest, there was a very bad harvest. People could not grow anything, production of crops were very bad, it was very less in comparison to the population of the country. Now, in the next one, we'll see the year 1848 was one such year. So, one such year, bad year, where all the bad things that happened, worst things that happened was that bad harvest and everything happened was in the year 1848. Why? Because food shortages and widespread unemployment brought the population of Paris out on the streets. And there were so many people who were out on the streets fighting. They wanted food and they wanted some kind of relief, but they could not get anything from the government. And as barricades were erected to stop the people from coming to the palace, but Louis Philippe could not do anything. At last, he was forced to flee. Louis Philippe was the main person, or he was the appointed king according to the constitution monarchy. And then a national assembly, as Louis Philippe ran away. You can see here the peasants uprising in the year 1848 here. And as you can see, there was a national assembly that proclaimed the republic. And they said that from now on, they will be electing the head of the group, head of the country. And they granted suffrage to all the adult males, all the people, those who were above 21 years, only males, and guaranteed their right to work also. And national workshops were provided to provide employment, and these also were set up for the people. Okay. So here we come to know one in 1845, 3-4 years ago, weavers in Silesia, they also had a revolt against the contractors, and they actually supplied them raw materials. And this is what you can read by yourself in a Silesian village. And the journalist William Wolff writes about these events, how the people got out of control and they attacked the contractors. And at last we find that in these years, many people had to suffer. And like here we come to know, in cotton weaving is one of the widespread occupations that took place, and the misery of the workers is extreme there. So the contractors were giving them money, but they did not give them the right amount of money when they bought the things from them. And one such incident happened that you can read on June 4th at 2 p.m. So many people went and destroyed the houses of this contractor. The contractor ran away from there and took refuge in another place. But however, the people did not help them there also. At last he went away and brought the army, and after that there was a big fight, and 11 weavers were shot, and I think they died also. And this is what you can read by yourself and you can try to understand. So here we completed this video, and we have tried to understand the things that are associated with that. In the next one we'll see 3.3, the revolution of the liberals, the people those who are following liberals policy, the revolution of the liberals, and we'll see about that. So thank you, till then, bye.